Everyone. Today I will explain in detail how each components of a computer work and how they interact with each other. First, there are 6 essential components in a computer. The first one is the Central Processing Unit, also known as the CPU. The Power Supply Unit, also known as the PSU. The Hard Disk Drive, also known as the HDD. The Random Access Memory, also known as RAM. The motherboard, and finally the case. Let's start by talking about the case. It is the box that contains all the other components of the computer. It is usually made of steel and has a design to make sure there is good airflow inside the computer. In a computer, every component produces heat. A good airflow is primordial to make sure the computer doesn't run too hot, resulting in crashes or equipment damage. To regulate the temperature in the computer, cold air will come out from one side of the case, while hot air will evacuate the case from the other side, which is the side where most of the components are. The second necessary part of a functioning computer is the power supply unit. The PSU is a complex adapter that will plug into the wall. His role is to provide power to the other parts of the computer. While this part looks elementary, it is pretty complex. It converts 120 volts electricity, which is the electricity coming out of the wall, in 5 volt electricity, which is compatible with all the other parts of the computer. The third essential component is the motherboard. It is the board where all the components are plugged in. It is made of multiple circuits which allow communication and data transfer between the parts. The Central Processing Unit, also known as the CPU, is often referred as the brain of the computer. Its role is to do all the calculations, the controlling, the mathematics, and several other tasks. To explain it in a simpler way, it executes the instructions provided by the programs or the softwares being run on the computer. The heatsink is an air exchanger that transfers the heat of the CPU in its surrounding. After, it will be evacuated from the case by the case fans. The way the last two parts work is similar, but their functionality are different. The hard disk drive, also known as the HDD, is the storage of the computer. This is where all the files and data of the computer will be stored. Photos, videos, games, applications, operating systems, and many more things are stored in the HDD. His sole purpose is to store things, so it has a large storage, but the access towards these files can be slow. This is where the random access memory comes in. The random access memory is where the files are while they are being used by the users. Contrarily to the HDD, it has a small storage space but has a fast access speed. Therefore, his role is to operate the files, programs, or applications while they are being used by the user. In this slide, we will see how the process I explained in the last slide works. In the first place, the files are in the HDD. The processor then sends the information to the hard drive describing what files need to be transferred. The hard drive receives the information and sends it to the RAM where it will stay until the user decides to close it. Let's take Internet as an example. When the user clicks on the Internet Explorer icon, the CPU receives the information and transfers the file from the hard drive to the memory. Now let's talk about the complementary parts, which are the parts that are optional to your computer for it to work. The graphics processing unit transfers the video information of the files towards the computer screen. It is considered optional since there is usually an integrated graphics device in the CPU. However, the latter is not performant enough to accomplish some tasks like heavy video editing or playing detailed video games. In these situations, users will often put a graphics processing unit in their computer. The last part I want to talk about today is the fans. Powered by the power supply, their only role is to evacuate hot air and push in cold air in the case to make sure all the parts work properly in the computer. Thank you for your listening.